Thank you for tuning in to Finish the Fight, a gaming podcast. If you have not, be sure to check out our Patreon at patreon.com/finish the fight, where we have some amazing merch and plenty of other things for you guys.
If you're an athlete, you know the greatest motivator of all is the fear of letting your teammates down. After all, a team is only as good as its weakest link. So you owe it to those wearing the same jersey as you to be your best every time you step on the field. That's why there's no vape in team. When you vape, you can expose your lungs to toxic chemicals that can damage your lungs. If you're a step behind, the team's a step behind. Brought to you by The Real Cost and the FDA.
Welcome back to Finish the Fight, a gaming podcast,
where we produce and develop the highest quality gaming research in podcast form.
I am your host, Alex Kendall.
And I'm your host, Derek Baker.
And today we're tuning the forks, tuning the knobs, tuning what we talk about. It's lost on me. But we're setting our sights on something a little different than gaming research. It's adjacent to it because we are going to be talking about leaks, the things that plumbers have their cracks for, and other various things in your home. But more so on these leaks are going to be gaming leaks. So we just had, as we were prepping to record this as an aside of just a bonus, we have the Insomniac leaks, which just dropped like a couple hours ago as we were setting up.
Yeah, man. It's been a really crazy year, I think, for leaks, where it's just so many of these companies. I mean, I think there's a little bit of a mix of excitement from some of the leaks where it's just people getting a little overzealous. And then I think there's more malicious leaks like this Insomniac one, where they're actually hacked and their data is held for ransom. And, it's some big cybercrime that's happening. And we've discussed the gaming industry as the behemoth that it is and how maybe sometimes it doesn't get recognition for how much money it actually generates outside of people that play video games. But you have things like this that happen, and it's actually a very, very big deal, very big cybercrime with a lot of implications. And so definitely, I think will be a really interesting thing to talk about today.
Yeah, and so I wanted to start, obviously, with our hot off the presses. By this time, it's a little chilled. And we'll definitely see more when you guys listen to this because it's going to be coming out in a couple weeks. But wanted to discuss this because these hackers had ransomed it and basically said, hey, pay us a little cool $2 million. We won't release it. But as we all know, you don't negotiate with terrorists. But also, you don't negotiate with cyber criminals because they still retain your data. It's not like they're handing over like the one file of loose leaf paper of this document. It can be multiple copies. This be going on for years. And so unfortunately, a lot of these companies just have to eat it. And they've already been in talks with some of their publishers. And one of the biggest ones, as we know of, is Marvel, because we see that they're going to be plausibly at this point publishing a couple more Marvel games over the next 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, along with some of their original IPs. And it is kind of scary, especially if you work for that company, to deal with it. I mean, this was a big year for it. We saw GTA 6 leaks this year. We saw some other Microsoft Intel leaks kind of about their roadmaps. And it's frustrating because, I mean, I guess as a gamer as we are, it's cool to see like what's coming, but not in these ways.
No, and it's cool when you're seeing the trailers that come out and, if sometimes they have to backtrack that stuff. We talk about that a lot on our episodes where it's, they go to these events and they show gameplay and don't get the reaction that they want, but it's under their control. They're able to put what they want out there and get that genuine response. When it's stuff like this, you can go on and watch Wolverine gameplay right now. That's not what Insomniac wants anybody to see. And I think it derails a little bit of the hype for the game because all that buildup, who knows how similar or how far off it is. But you're forming opinions about things. It's similar to knowing spoilers before you go in and see a movie. It just kind of changes your perception of things. You can only see things for the first time once. And so I'm really curious, with the Insomniac one in particular, Marvel and Disney, very, very big companies, very protective of their intellectual properties. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about like cybercrime in general to be like, oh man, these hackers are gonna get found, they're gonna get caught, and there's gonna be huge consequences. But there's definitely gonna be consequences, I think, for the gaming industry as a whole. Because it goes beyond Insomniac. I mean, we're talking Sony and, Marvel Disney as well.
Well, and this has been a gang, if we want to call it that, but it is the Riceta ransom gang. So Riceta is a little creepy bug, kind of incorporates inside you. But we've seen them act on other companies, and we've seen them within Rockstar. We've seen them or sects of them within CD Projekt Red. Whenever Cyberpunk came out and they said, "Hey, pay us X amount of dollars, or we're gonna, leak everything," and they leaked the source code to The Witcher, to Cyberpunk, to a lot of other things, and a lot of personal data of the employees, which is one of the biggest hangups that I think is the scariest thing of this. Is the same thing happened with Insomniac. You had all of this employee data that has been leaked to the internet. Personal information, IDs, addresses, emails, socials, everything that can kind of be sold on the dark web for that. And so it is very scary to see this coming out. And so unfortunately, and I'm just reading through some of these comments that we have and just some of these other things I'm seeing online, and the FBI and the CIA were actually warning last month and a month and a half ago that Riceta was active again, quote unquote, that was kind of seeking a new target. And they were basically saying like, hey, the other big thing that they're doing, like you and I just kind of said, is a double attack. Hey, here are your files back. Go ahead. But implanted in those files is a backdoor for us anyway. So we're going to be coming back. So it's kind of like, it's a lose-lose, unfortunately. And so, like I said, if you're Insomniac, you have your PR team that's been 24/7 since they heard about this, which I assume was probably a week, 2 weeks ago, maybe. I don't know how long they had to like tell them that they weren't getting their money, but it's scary. And we also saw, I think we also saw Riceta in Maryland. It was one of the city centers lost all of their information to a cyber attack. And this also harkens to an even larger idea of these hacks, is like, how far can this go? And how scary is that we have just so much online now, governmental systems, video game companies, all these different things that are available with it that for the most part are kind of, we can call it hacked into a lot of times from like back doors, through email, through phishing, through, Bob in accounting clicking the wrong link that allows them into the system.
Yeah.
And it is scary that it is that easy to kind of get into these systems.
Sure. And I mean, I guess I don't want to get too deep into that whole conversation. I think that, yeah, there are, I think, a lot of bigger consequences. To me, like I was saying at the beginning, there is, I think, a little bit of an overzealous type of hacker person or leaker in general, where we have the Rockstar leaks, right? Where it links back to an executive in the company and either his son or his son's friend somehow getting information about the map and leaking that online. I think that's just stupidity of, kids not necessarily understanding the impact of what they're doing.
Sure.
Whereas you have something like this, and not only are you leaking the personal data files, and there's a lot of information in there that is proprietary to Insomniac, to Sony, where they don't want people to know. One of the things was, Sony has a slide in a PowerPoint where they're really talking about threats to their company by Microsoft acquisitions. And that's information that you don't want Microsoft to have, especially with Microsoft seemingly throughout the year being on its heels all the time, saying like, we're not sure we're going to be competitive in the home console market anymore. And then you have information like that come out. Does that change things for them? Those are certainly things that the company doesn't want leaked. But then you have all that employee data where it becomes a very personal attack, and it becomes a very like a livelihood attack that goes beyond just like almost an anonymous sort of oversight kind of thing like they would do. This is more of a, we're out strictly for us, strictly to make money. Everyone else that's in our way, be damned. It doesn't matter because we're going to do what we have to do to try and make these millions in Bitcoin or whatever they're asking for.
Yeah. And sorry, I was recalling back, looked up a little bit more information. Insomniac was given 6 days to pay this ransom. So a little less than a week, and obviously turned it down. There's, again, not much you can do when it comes to cybercrime like that. And I want to also step back and talk about, I think we've talked about, even just any of us in the game community, of leaks, of spoilers, of any of these things that have come out from, like you said, someone's brother's friend who took a screenshot of like a map coming out, or a character getting released in a game, or a release date leaking through these things through different channels. Some of them are a little more innocent than others. Obviously, some of that like is just like, hey, look at this cool thing. This thing's coming out. I got the exclusive scoop. Come on, give me some of that street cred. Give me some of that clout.
It's my dad works for Nintendo, in 2023.
Yes. I know that the new Pokemon game's coming out because my dad's Mr. Nintendo.
Yeah.
It's very much starts as simple as that into scarier things like this. We know that video gaming is a billion dollar industry. It is there competing up at some of the top entertainment industries. And so you're going to keep seeing things like this happen, unfortunately. And so it is very scary to see that. And it is, it's something that spreads like wildfire. All of this is all over the internet. It's all over Reddit. It's all over Imgur. It's all over these different like hosting websites. You'll never take it down type thing. It'll never go down. And it's like, how at Insomniac, how do you approach this? CD Projekt Red, I think, did it. Obviously, this is all their own IPs, or I guess, you're obviously using other people's IPs for your basis of it within The Witcher and Cyberpunk.
Sure.
But you're not reporting to Marvel and Disney. You're reporting to Polish authors and various others for these things. And so they handled it pretty well. It's like, listen, you got to leak it. Like, there's nothing we can do. We're going to play, hardball with you, I suppose. But I think most of it is like, you kind of just got to let it go and let people forget.
It's got to be a frustrating, helpless feeling of, know that you've been robbed. You know that they're going to have this data regardless of if you pay them or not. And so what do? You just have to let them commit the crime and hope everything works itself out, and try to manage those relationships, with Sony and Marvel, and try to, figure out how this leak happened, how to prevent it, all those things. There's definitely a lot of a ripple effect that I think will change some things about how these companies handle their information going forward. But I do want to talk a little bit about, beyond the obvious negative implications of these leaks.
Sure.
A lot of excitement. This information spreads so quickly because gamers are interested in the things that are leaked and coming out going forward. Might as well talk about it since it's out. Insomniac, some of the games that are coming out. Obviously, the big one is Wolverine 2026, probably the most advanced thing to be leaked from them on the gaming side that I think people are hyped for. Of course, you've got a Venom game as well that's actually supposed to come out a year earlier than that. Maybe just an expansion building on the Spider-Man 2 thing, who knows? Ratchet and Clank in 2029, Spider-Man 3 TBA, and then an X-Men title that's really only licensing for X-Men, so who really knows what that means? But allegedly
Sure.
targeting a 2030 release date for an X-Men team game, which I think would be a huge undertaking.
Yeah, I think it's a lot to look at in that of just again knowing that relationship with Marvel and knowing how well Spider-Man 1, 2, and Miles Morales did.
Yeah.
I mean, we also saw that like Spider-Man 2 had a budget of 315 million and they made that back in 24 days.
Yeah. Wow.
Like it's astounding just how well this is done. And, I think Spider-Man and Miles Morales, I think like sealed the handshake, and then Spider-Man 2 making these numbers like fully married Marvel Insomniac into making these third-person action adventure games for the Marvel universe.
Sure.
It's very cool to see. I personally hope nothing changes. Like this leak sucks all over the place, but like this is the studio to trust with these things, and I think overall you got to spin this in a positive light of like, hey, get people excited about it. It's out there. What do you do?
Right.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Right. I think Insomniac absolutely did a fantastic job with those Spider-Man games. There's been a ton of Spider-Man games that have come out in the past, going back to really old consoles. And I mean, I think that there's even one for the original Sega, if I remember right. But there's a ton of, I think, history within that character that made it such a good jumping off point. And what I'm excited for is that, yeah, they saw the success of that and decided we are going to take other IPs in a way. To me, while the MCU is sort of faltering, are we going to get this really cool universe in the video game realm now with Spider-Man, with Wolverine, with X-Men? Is that stuff going to connect and cross over in any way? Or are they just going to kind of be their own separate things? But to me, it's a very, very exciting revelation to happen for Insomniac, for gaming, and definitely for Sony, who, unfortunately, a little bit of their information that came out is not so great for them. Like like we were discussing with the financials and the actual competitive concerns from Microsoft.
Yeah, and it's I feel again, I keep bringing this up, but I feel for the employees, everyone that works there, and just what this is going to have to go through, because it's not just a fun rumor or someone sharing something. Like another leak that came out that it doesn't top these charts whatsoever, but Obsidian, who did stuff like Fallout New Vegas, actually pitched to Bethesda several times to do spin-offs like that for Elder Scrolls, and were just straight up, flat out turned down. Great leak for that, for an internal document, but still nothing beats kind of what's going on with Insomniac with this, because sure, that sucks. I would love to have that. But I mean, we're seeing sales numbers, we're seeing projected figures for Wolverine, and I think Spider-Man 3 are projected to be around the same project budget as Spider-Man 2, around that 315, 330, 345 budget. And then going on to the Wolverine, like the game has basically been released in terms of how far they were along. I mean, we're seeing missions, concept art, the full story, voice actors, voice acting scripts, everything is here. And it's wild. It's wild to see.
Combat, is definitely the biggest thing, because you have a a pretty, I think, vanilla combat character. Spider-Man's thing is sort of pulling his punches. Wolverine is the antithesis of that, where he is all
Yes.
about the gore, the bloodshed, not holding back. Like, if you make him upset, he's going to go into a rage, not even know what's going on, and just black out and massacre everyone. So just, I think something that people are very curious to see, like, what is the dichotomy of these two things? So definitely very interesting. But you're right, on the note of like fun leaks versus something like this, you know, I think as gamers really want that, the fun side of that, where
Yeah.
it's like we want that dad that works at Nintendo to exist, and for Peekaboo to be
Yes.
real, and to find Mew under the truck and whatever else, whatever other nonsense rumors got made up, when we were kids. Some of these rumors, though, it just brings into question what kind of things are going to happen with these games. GTA 6, when that one leaked initially, and it was gameplay, and it was a guy and a girl, and they were, I think, like running around in a diner.
Mm-hmm.
Now we see that there was actually a lot of accuracy to that. Now that the trailer is officially dropped, Grand Theft Auto is going back to Vice City. It's got a lot of satire of real life things that you can see in viral videos, which is super interesting. There's the guy that tattooed his face like the Joker, that now feels like he should get
Mm-hmm.
paid for his likeness being copied, even though he copied a likeness. I don't fully understand how that works, but I don't think that guy is all that stable or a well calculated individual.
No.
So that's kind of interesting, because just to connect the dots here, Wolverine, you see a lot of that gameplay in a very, very, very alpha form of it all. Not a lot of textures and things like that.
Yes.
But the accuracy of the GTA 6 leaks leads me to believe the legitimacy of all of these leaks as well, and that we're actually seeing a lot of very accurate things within these leaks. And that sort of stuff, I think, for gamers is what becomes really exciting.
Yeah. And I think we just have that little bit of a different pathway between the two as well. Because I know with GTA 6 leaks, it was very much like, is this? Is it not? It's not confirmed. What is this? Whereas now we're like, ooh, Insomniac, you got a paper trail. Like, we're seeing everything from the full build. It's unfortunately not just like a trailer released for Wolverine. We've got the whole thing. So it's scary. It's scary to see. It's very cool to see like
Yeah.
the behind the scenes stuff, but it sucks. It super sucks for them. I really feel for them over at Insomniac, which is such a great studio. And I think it's going to make a lot of studios, Sony, I mean, even just the big daddies of Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, really kind of like button up and see how their security goes. I mean, if people are getting in like this, like, you got to, like, what do? Do you parse your data between several servers? Do you make sure, like, Pete in accounting can't get on that server? But, like, how does this happen when they can take more than a terabyte of data for all of this and are able to download it?
For sure. And as far as keeping that stuff, close to the chest and just not releasing that stuff, I almost wonder if we'll get less than we already get sometimes publicly,
Mhm.
because does Insomniac get targeted if they're not, promoting their next game in Wolverine? If it kind of looks
Sure.
like, well, they just released Spider-Man 2 and now they're going dark, a la Rockstar, but then maybe Rockstar waited too long. Do they get targeted in that same way versus a company that's constantly churning things out? But we'll never know the reasons that they were specifically targeted. I'm sure they'll start to figure some of that stuff out as time goes on. But yeah, I just wonder if, some of these companies will be a little bit more tight-lipped about future projects and things that they're working on, because they want to avoid almost too much attention, because the benefits of the hype in the public versus, being targeted by these cyber attack groups, these cyber terrorist groups, I guess is the right term.
Mhm.
What's the risk reward there? One of the other ones that came out this year that I think is a huge impact on the gaming industry was that Microsoft console leak, where the
Mhm.
successor to the Xbox Series X was going to be a digital only console, cylindrical, this, I don't know, like slight update kind of thing. But in terms of really moving forward and saying, we're going all digital now in the console market, I think is probably the biggest takeaway from that. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, having that earlier, and it's one of those things where like it's quote unquote old news to us now.
Yeah,
Like
this
I had
this
totally
was
kind of forgotten
September,
about
I
that.
think. Yeah.
But again, still not that old. I mean, we're talking a couple months, but it's still like, again, in kind of the public eye of 24-hour news cycle, it kind of goes away. But to be fair, I didn't buy the new Xbox. I play on PC mostly, so I've been on a digital marketplace for years. But I do prefer, like, especially with the Switch, I prefer physical copies. It's what I grew up with. It's what I can resell. That's one of the biggest kind of issues with that. But in terms of where we see the console market going, I think that's going to be it. And again, this is going to be rumored on these leaks that we have, and it does bring to speculation of what's to come. Does it change a company's pathway? Do they 180 it, on these things? Like what's to come with these leaks that are
Sure.
coming out? And like you said, I hope that all the personal info and things can be recovered as best as it can,
Probably not.
but that we do still have this road. Probably not, but we still have this roadmap to still get these Marvel games out there, which would be just so much fun. And hopefully competitors don't take that and try and run with it, because it is the scariest thing as a game dev as well, is that now Microsoft has the full shebang of what Insomniac and Sony are doing. They have the numbers of what Sony did on these games. They have the
Yeah.
number of what Insomniac's doing with it. And I think that's the scariest part in the gaming sphere of it is, what does Microsoft or a competitor or a foreign competitor do with that? And do they try and make their own Wolverine game using that same kind of build and engine,
Yeah.
but just do it in a different character?
Sure. Where, suddenly you get like three of the same movie that all come out at the same time. You're like, wait a minute.
Exactly.
I already saw
So
this
it's like,
movie with Ashton Kutcher.
exactly. So it's like, do you have someone rush to come out 1 month earlier in 2025 or 2 months earlier, making that same game? And even if that game is bad, it still affects Wolverine coming out, because you already have the idea of like, hold on, we played a platformer fighting game like that was Wolverine. This is already a bad taste in our mouth coming out to Wolverine. Like
Yeah.
it's still going to affect it negatively all over the place. So I am interested to see where this comes. Like, you and I are probably tracking this over the next couple of weeks up until, past Christmas into the new year.
Sure.
And we'll see what happens.
I definitely think it's a good conversation piece just about,
Yeah.
the state of the industry. A lot of information that we would not normally get access to, obviously. But yeah, 100% feel for those employees. The companies themselves, it sucks. It sucks for all those agreements. Curious
Mhm.
more than anything else, just curious about how they respond to everything. But yeah, I think that the the days of hype and basically future announcements of video gaming, I think that we were already sort of seeing the decline of things like that
Yeah.
because of these long life cycles that we've done episodes on, because of the way that they're trying to deliver on these games where, like a Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out way, 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 way later, Elder Scrolls
Mhm.
6, same sort of issues where there's just all this hype that goes into the length of time almost. Now I think that we're really going to see these companies just sort of close that stuff off and know going into it that as soon as they could a month before be like, Elder Scrolls is coming out, by the way, and people would lose their mind. My prediction is that we just see even less than we already do now, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll see. I think AAAs especially are going to be a little bit more buttoned up because they know they're going to make the sales. They're going to put that, millions in marketing that week, 2 weeks before, and then, a month and two after the game comes out instead of kind of hyping it up for years and years and years and years. And so we'll just have to see. But I'm excited for this discussion. Obviously, when this comes out, you guys know everything more than us. So don't disagree with us while you're listening. Just go back a little bit in time. But we'd love to have this discussion. Join us on our socials and our Discord. We'd love to talk more about this and just kind of the state of the industry, like Derek had said, when it comes to things like this. Who's going to be more buttoned up? Are we actually going to see anything at the Game Awards anymore, or any of the E3s? We'll see what comes.
Absolutely. I think it's a really great discussion. It's been a fun year. This is the last episode for the year. I think a solid way to wrap everything up. It's been really great. And Happy New Year. Hope you guys had a good holiday. And we'll see you all here shortly in 2024.
See you next year.